Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Yapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Atpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunatu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So last week we had our first depth introduction to this idea that the world is fundamentally neutral. That there is no joy in the world. The world isn't bad. It's just shunyata. It's empty. It's mithya. It's illusory. And what do? I don't know if I used this example last week. It's like you take out a great big piece of butcher paper. Did I do this one last week?
No.
Okay. Then what do? I draw a carrot on the butcher paper. I love carrots. Then I'll hunt around and I find a stick just a little bit longer than my arm. And I fashion this thing and I put it on my end of the stick. And I put it over my head and I put the carrot on the piece of paper up there at that end. And then I start running. And then the wind blows my direction and I get the picture of the carrot that I drew, that I decided was separate from me. And when I get it, oh, I'm so successful. I have acquired a carrot. That's what we do. Whatever it is that I think is desirable, it's inherently neutral. People, places, things, and conditions. I decide that it's joy-giving, or the antithesis, misery-producing. I decide that I need to get it and it's stuff. My happiness is separate from me. And desire and desire become, an object of desire become one. All I've done is stop the stupid craving. That's all that happens. And we have to prove this to ourselves. Yeah, but what about money, ambition, babies, boyfriends, family. Are those real? Shankara says, no. So the assignment is watch our minds. Oh, Lord Dukkha. When I'm unhappy, my ego says it's because I don't have what I want. Yoga says it's because I'm stuck wanting. Oh, I wish I could turn it off. That's like saying, I wish I didn't have a hangover Saturday morning. It's too late. Does that make sense? You've already set up the dynamic. I want. Drink the cheap champagne Friday nights, you get the headache Saturday morning. It's too late then. When's the time to do it? Would you like a glass of this champagne? No, not for me, not tonight. And then when you do get what you want, watch your happiness. And we get confused with the diversity of sensory experience. You mean fudge, chocolate, good sex, beautiful music, getting some money, the stock market went up. All this does the same thing to my mind. Yes. Happiness always tastes the same. But I get confused because of the Lord's Maya Shakti. He's the greatest Mayavis, illusionists. I'm all fascinated by the phenomena. I don't see what's happening in my mind. And again, it will vary in intensity and duration, depending on how badly I want it and how successfully it's satisfied my little card file of what it is I want. And it's so repetitive and it's so boring. And we have to work so damn hard for just a little juice in life. And watching this process develops mature vairagya. Remember going all the way back to the qualifications of the fit student. Brahma satyam jagamityeti rupa vinishchaya soyam nitya anitya vastu viveka saudaritaha. A firm conviction in the intellect that Brahman alone is real, meaning that's where the Ananda is. That is known as discrimination between the real and the unreal. All right, next verse. What verse are we on for this week?
119.
119?
Yeah.
One
You
more
tell me
time.
Should I start?
Mm-hmm.
विशुद्धसत्त्वस्य गुणाप्रसादः स्वात्मानुभूति परमा प्रशान्ति तृप्ति प्रहर्ष परमात्मनिष्ठा यया सनानन्दस् रसं स्रमिच्छति. The characteristics of pure sattva are cheerfulness, the experience of one's own self, supreme peace, contentment, bliss, and constant devotion to the Supreme Self, by which the aspirant comes to enjoy everlasting bliss.
Yes. So when we talked, we entered into our discussion of the gunas last week. Tamas, the principle of inactivity, of illusion, delusion, being shut down, depressed. Rajas, activity, squirrely mind. Where all our suffering is. And now he's talking, last week we did mixed sattva, and now pure sattva. So when the mind is purely sattvic, we see reality as it really is. I know who I am. I see the world for what it is. I have spontaneous contentment, cheerfulness. One of the things that was so remarkable about Swamiji, he laughed all the time. He found people very, very funny. Very, very. If you tuned up to him, so empty. Shunya Prasad. Gift of his emptiness. Any questions about the sattvic state of mind? Next verse.
Section 32. The causal body, its nature.
Yes.
Avyaktametat trigunai niruvatam tatkaranam nama shariramatmanah sushuptiretasya vibhaktavastha pralina sarvendra yabuddhivrittihi. This unmanifest, described as a combination of all three gunas, is the causal body of the individual. Its special state is deep sleep, in which all the functions of the mind, intellect, and the sense organs are totally suspended.
Yes. Now, earlier when we had our discussion of the Antakarana, it kind of mushed the causal body in there with it. Here he's splitting it out. It's only for the matter of discussion. It doesn't really matter how you parse this. Karana just means cause. What is the cause of my life? It is my vasanas. What is a vasana? A vasana is a subset of sanskara. Sanskara means an impression. Couldn't function in the world without them, and sanskaras in and of themselves are not problematic. They do not rob you of self-experience, and they don't cause you to suffer. Do you know this is a lamp? Do you?
Yes.
You know it's not a table, right? Is that causing you any problems?
Yeah.
No. You would not know that it's a lamp if you did not have sanskaras. Werner Erhard used to point to a chair that he sat in on the stage. He used to say, we call it a chair, an Australian Aborigine would call it firewood. We don't have chairs in Aboriginal Australian culture. If it grows in the ground, it's a tree. If it's dead, it's firewood. The Eskimos have something like 32 different words for snow. In English, we have the word love. Sanskrit has no equivalent word for the English idea of romantic love. There's sniyati and lubyati. How would you define those two?
Snehati is like almost like a stickiness of something that you're stuck to something.
Yes, attachment. Yeah.
And Lupyati is like a burden almost. It's like comes from the word lo, which is a burden. So,
Yeah. They both have negative connotations.
and then there's prem, I think, which is divine love.
Yes, they do have that. But romantic love, like we have in the chivalric Western tradition, no word for it. So in the US, you fall in love. In India, you arrange a marriage. I have no judgment as which is the better system. But my point is,
When you look at the divorce rate in the United States.
well, I don't know if it's any better. But the whole idea is these are all impressions. Now, a vasana is a subset. A vasana is an impression left in the unconscious as a result of egoistic action. I-ness and minus. And when I have an experience that involves I-ness and minus, and I engage in what we call chintya. Chintya in Hindi means worry, but in Sanskrit, it means after the fact, rumination, thinking about an event, either positively or negatively. What that does is leave an impression in the unconscious. They are unconscious. They comprise my ignorance. The power of avasana is avarana shakti, veiling power. Later on, Shankara will use the metaphor. It's like a silkworm spinning a cocoon. One thread, that's like one vasana. Not a big deal, little tapas can break it. But if we don't, one thread, another thread, another thread. That's exactly how the silkworm builds its cocoon. Until finally, the cocoon is a solid thing encapsulating the silkworm. And that's what happens to my mind. So here, Shankara also calls it the avyakta, the unmanifest, because you can't see this unmanifest, this karana sharira. In a sense, you can. You do have a direct experience of it, but it has no qualities. We experience it in deep sleep. So, for example, Wendy has vasanas of being a chef. For you, Puneet has vasanas of being a computer programmer. But when you go to sleep, your experience is, I know nothing. When you go to sleep, your experience is, I know nothing. If the two of them were sound asleep here on the floor of my living room and strangers came in, well, which one's the chef and which one's the computer programmer? Couldn't tell. Sound asleep. But all of those tendencies are in their seed form. They're karana, causal form. From that avyaktaha, the gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattva emerge. Some scriptures will say deep sleep is pure tamas. Don't worry about it. It is the cause of everything. So I go through my day to day. I like this. No, I don't like that. Think about it after the fact. Oh, I'm never going to do that again. Oh, that was so swell. I'm going to try doing that again next week. That leaves an impression. Next, then when today's vasanas have been exhausted, guess what happens? Deep sleep. But they're there in their seed form. And the next day, and then during the day, they tickle me. Oh, I think I'm going to make fudge again. Oh, I'll make this or go visit them or do this project. Why do I do it? Have you ever had the experience of sitting in meditation and you're just squirmy and your mind won't settle down? Who's had that experience? That's called vasana pressure. That's what it is. That's what it is. It is nothing more than the pressure of yesterday's, and by that I mean metaphorically, going back to lifetimes, impressions, just pressing, wanting to impel us again into ego-driven, ego-prompted activity. Now, the direct perception of vasana is called deep sleep. We infer the nature of a vasana from its effects. And the example I like to use, when I lived in the city, I used to grow dahlias in my yard. And in the end of the fall, you had to dig them up, and I would put them into paper bags and label them. And then I'd stick in the refrigerator we had in the garage to fake them out and make them think that it was a colder winter. It never got cold enough in San Francisco. So for them to bloom in the spring, they had to have a pretend winter. And I can remember one year we had a leak upstairs. And I had the bags still out. They were on the hood of the car in the garage. I hadn't put it away yet. And when the water came down, it melted the paper sacks, and all the bulbs were all over the garage floor and everything. Couldn't tell one from another because the bulbs were in their seed form. I had to stick them in the ground and they grew again before I could figure out what they were. So deep sleep for you and you and you and you, it's the same. But the unmanifest qualities are different for each of us. So this is known as pure vasana. It's known as deep sleep. And here he also uses the term avyakta, unmanifest. It's when all the activity of the gunas are all subsumed to their causal or seed form. Any questions about the causal body.
This isn't quite about this, but it's related. So when one feels Vasa pressure during the day in waking state, is that when the best thing to do is to notice it and just stop doing what you're doing?
Well, it depends. First of all, discriminate.
Mm-hmm.
You are not the activity. Sometimes you've got responsibilities.
Right.
But for example, if you were on a meditation retreat and the desire to make curry chicken came up, what would you do?
Sit there and not. Right. Well, it's just sometimes I notice when I'm doing, I'll catch that it's like pressure to do. It's like being busy. And then I'll just sit down because it's like something seems to be.
I have implicit faith in your inner guru. You will know if you just stay quiet and pay attention. It'll all become clear. Your innate wisdom will emerge. Did that make sense?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I, as a rule, do not suggest that people act in the world out of recipes, because things they change. Life is far more an art. It needs lots of improvisation.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have questions about the unmanifest, the causal body? So we've had the stula sharira, the gross body, the meat lump, the sukshma sharira, the world of thoughts and feelings and the ego. And now the karana sharira, the vasanas, the unmanifest, from which all that stuff emerges. Next verse.
Sorry, Tim, where is dream state, like things you see in the dream film?
It's all still vasana expressing itself. It's the 99.9% of our dreams are the undigested impressions of the waking state. It can be of value because can begin to reveal to you what you're not really paying too much attention to in the waking state. So, like, for example, if you go for several weeks and you're angry in every dream, to me, I would say, maybe I need to look at that. Am I angry? Do I have anger in my life that I'm really not looking at or dealing with? Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Now, there are what we call big dreams. Sometimes a Mahatma will come visit us. Sometimes a relative who's recently passed away will come visit us. Some people actually get prophecy. They Hiranyagarbha, the total mind. It's like you're in the iCloud instead of on your desktop. You get messages. But those are rare. And that's not the same as what we're talking about. All right, next verse.
Sarva prakara pramiti prashanti virjatmanava sthitareva buddhehe sushuktiretasya kila pratiti kinchin navedam iti jagat prasiddhehe. The mind remains in a subtle seed-like form in deep sleep, which is the state of complete cessation of all kinds of perceptions. Indeed, the universal experience in this state is, quote, I did not know anything, end quote.
And notice it's after the fact. You do not have that thought while you're sleeping. You have it in the morning. I must have slept so soundly. I did not know anything. So there's when the mind is in its seed state. But you are still there. A couple ways to approach it. Most common one that the scriptures use is through the law of memory. The rememberer and the experiencer must be the same entity. You cannot remember something you haven't experienced. Did you sleep well last night? Yes? No?
Yes.
Did I sleep well last night? You do not know. So the fact that you could say, I slept well last night, proves something was there to witness the absence of the mentating mind. So when you hear some scriptures say, the person of wisdom never sleeps, it doesn't mean they stay up at night. It means the self never sleeps. You, in fact, are never unconscious. You are aware of an unconscious mind. But you are still there, shining as awareness. Next verse.
Section 33, not self. Dehendriya prana mano hamadaya sarve vikara vishaya sukhadaya vyomadi bhutanya khilam cha vishva avyakta paryanti idam hyahatmana. The body, sense organs, pranas, mind, and ego, etc., are all their modifications, the sense objects and their pleasures, etc., the gross elements such as ether, etc., the whole universe up to the unmanifest. These constitute the not self.
Yes. So, what is the discrimination between the two, the self and the not self? Remember, that was part of our 7 questions. So here, this is the not self. The body, the prana, the feelings, the thoughts, the ego sense, all sense perceptions, the entire phenomenal world of objects, all subtle things like angels and demons and devas and stuff, messages you get from beyond, things you see in meditation, voices you hear, all of it without exception is not self. If it has a beginning and an end, if it occurs in time and space, if it has qualities or characteristics, and most importantly, if it is an object of cognition, that's not it. Drop it. Why is this important? When I had my center in San Francisco, there was this fellow who had an acid trip 20 years earlier. And he was convinced that he'd realized the self on his acid trip, but he had lost it. And he wanted so desperately to get back there. I do not know what he experienced. I'm sure it was marvelous. But did it have a beginning and an end? Well, obviously. It began when he took the acid and it ended when he came down. Did it have qualities? Oh, yes, I felt one with everything. Do you feel it now? No. At a beginning and an end. It was a quality of mind. That's not it. So listen carefully. We are not looking for a mind state. Mind states are fun. God knows I love them. Love to get high. But that's not it. What is it? What is it that is always there? Nityananda, eternal, fount of bliss. It's changeless, birthless, deathless, and most importantly, never known as an object. It is the eternal subject. Aham. So what Shankara is doing is having us examine all the objective phenomena that many of us superimpose on the self. I think I'm my body. I think God is energy. I think, reality is a feeling. Try to figure this out. God's an idea that I'm going to grasp. It's not it. Very important shloka. Any thoughts before we go on? Next verse.
Maya Maya Karyam Sarvam Mahadideha Paryatam Asaddi Damanatvatvam Vidhitvam Marumarichika Kalpam. Everything is due to the effect of Maya, from Mahat down to the gross body. Know thou that these and Maya itself are the not self. Therefore, they are unreal, like the mirage waters in desert.
Yes. So the Mahat, meaning the whole creation, the origin of everything, and the Maya, the Shakti that caused it all to appear, all of it, the God idea down to my body, down to little cells, down to the atoms. All of it is not self, and all of it comes about sankalpena, by means of imagination. It is illusory, like the mirage waters in the desert. Driving through the desert, and initially my perception is water, and my knowledge is water. My car's going to get caught in the flood. I keep driving, go like this. That's what makes the car go. And the water keeps receding. You realize it's a mirage. Now listen carefully. It still looks like water. Oh, it's a mirage. just like a flood of water on the floor of the valley. My perception is water, but my knowledge is heat waves of the descent. Children seeing the rainbow. Oh, mommy, let's get in the car. Let's find the end of the rainbow. Can you find the end of the rainbow? Seeing, but not real. Now, perception is really, really powerful. Back in 1973, God, I can't believe I was around that time. So I was living in this great, big, huge 3-story Victorian, Dwight and Telegraph in another commune. And there was this wonderful stairway going up to from the upper floors. And somehow we had acquired this triangular shaped prism. It was about this long. And we had this game. We get up on the second floor and you look through the prism down at the stairway. Now, aren't most risers, 6 inches? Isn't that the standard height of a riser?
I think so.
What?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. But through the prism, they look like about 1.5 feet. Now, I knew they were only 6 inches. I'd walked up and down those stairs hundreds of times. But we'd stand at the top of the stairs and look through the prism, and you'd watch people and their feet would go. Because your eyes would deceive you looking through the prism. It was a fun game. But the point of it was perception is not a valid test for reality. Science would say the same thing. We think seeing is believing. So Shankara says we must see with the jnana chakshu, the eye of wisdom. Now, Lord Shiva has a third eye. And in the Hindu mythology, what happens when Shiva opens his third eye?
The world is destroyed.
World is destroyed, yes. That doesn't mean everything comes crashing down. What it means is when you see with 2 eyes, the dvandvas, the pairs of opposites, good and bad, hot and cold, honor and dishonor, happiness and sadness, gain and loss. Close the eyes. Open the eye of wisdom. Jnana chakshu. This is metaphor. You see the same world, but your knowledge, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Nitya. Brahman alone is real. All this is Nitya, an illusion. Pratibimba, like the reflection in it. Not self. Next verse.
Section 34, the self, its nature.
Good place to have the end of the year.
अथ ते संप्रवक्ष्यामि स्वरूपं परमात्मनः यदि विज्ञाय नरो बन्धात् मुक्त केवल्य मनुष्नुते. Now I will tell you of the real nature of the Supreme Self, realizing which a person is freed from all their personalities, encumbrances, bondages, and attains liberation.
Yes. So it is this knowledge of the self that liberates me. Not that I've read in the book, oh, the self has got this, and this. I know I've published the self. No. What it means is I know that it's me. At the moment of realization, the yogi doesn't exclaim, "Oh, I'm enlightened now. Oh, I'm a Mahatma. Everybody give me money and touch my feet." The deep inside is, Aham Brahmasmi. I am. This body is like a shadow. All my thoughts and feelings are unreal. No personal sense of self is real. I'm not an enlightened person. Chidananda Rupa. Form is bliss consciousness. Big difference. Next verse.
अस्ति कश्चित् स्वयं नित्यम् अहं प्रत्ययलम्बनः अवस्थात्रयसाक्षी सन् अवस्थात्रयसाक्षी सत् पंचकोश विलक्षणः. Something there is, which is the absolute entity, the eternal substratum for the very awareness of the ego. It is the witness of the three states, and it is distinct from all the five sheets.
So let's take this idea by idea. The first one, something there is,
Which is the absolute entity.
So it's an entity, meaning you are not void. You are not a zero. You are not an it, you're a who. You are a conscious, sentient, aware being. But you are the only conscious, sentient, aware being. You are the absolute entity. Moses goes up on Mount Sinai and asks God, "Who shall I say sent me?" And God says, "Tell them, I am sent you." That doesn't mean his name is Imes, like Imes dog food. It means when you know I am, in you. I am Atma. That self, this self, is. And it has Baba, it has being, it has Sat, it exists. Next idea
The eternal substratum
of the ego, right?
for the awareness of things.
Yes. So the ego borrows aham. Oh, I got so triggered this week, Jim. I was just a mess this week. I was so annoyed with so and so. Oh, I was so frightened about money. So all of these are states of the ego. It's I am with some qualifier, some condition. What Shankara is saying is that ego state, I am this, I am that, which always has as its origin an identification with the body, then plus the body's activities and experiences and stuff like that. But the substratum of that is something that's real, and that's you. So start with this apparent sense of ego. Who sees the phone? I do. Isn't that my ego? Let's not worry about that. Who sees the phone? I do. Who's sitting here in my living room? I am. Let's start with that entity. Now, let's practice subject object discrimination. Are you the body or is the body yours? No, I'm aware of the body. Are the feelings and thoughts you, or are you aware of them? In the space between your thoughts, well, who are you? What are you? You see, you cannot find a thing called the ego. It falls because it's phony. But there's something there. Me. Aham. That absolute entity, which I experience as I constantly. And if I'm in a state of ignorance, I keep superimposing all sorts of stuff on that constant experience. So listen carefully. Some of us think, well, right now I am in the ego state. I am Jim. And then something's going to happen and I'm going to explode and become Brahman, or I'm going to get glued onto the Paramatman, or I'm going to merge into the Paramatman. We have all these ideas that something's going to happen to my ego. Hopefully what's going to happen to ego is you just scrub the hell out of it and get rid of it. But something that you're experiencing right now remains. If it could be gained, it could be lost. You cannot gain the self. You can only realize what you always have been, who you always have been. All you can do is disidentify from the the falseness. Any thoughts on this? Don't believe me. Look. Next idea.
It is the witness of the three states.
Yes. So right now I'm in the waking state. Who's aware of my waking state? Me. Last night, oh, I had dreams. Golly, did I have weird dreams. Who saw the dreams? I did. And I slept so soundly before the alarm went up. Who was aware of deep sleep? I was. So I am the illuminator, the eternal witness of all mind states. I am not the mind state. So what we were talking about before class.
Mhm.
So you were hypersensitive and feeling a little crunchy and stuff like that.
Mhm.
You weren't feeling that. The mind felt that. Don't try to be a spiritual person. Understand that you are Brahman. Now, there's something that's happened pedagogically here. This is most specifically for Puni, who's studying this class from a pedagogical standpoint. Go back to our qualifications of a fit student. I am going to practice Viveka. I am going to practice Vairagya. I am going to practice Shama, Dhamma, Uparati. I am going to be a Mumukshu. I am going to be a Bhakta. Notice where Shankara places our identity. You see that? Now he's slowly and subtly starting to shift all that. As we've covered the Stula Sharira, gross body, Sukshma Sharira, subtle body, Karana Sharira, causal body. Now, you are not a quality of mind. You are the knower. Swamiji used to say the way to heal the mind is to get out of the mind. He's famous for having said in various classes, "Shut up and get out." Bellowing. Stop your mind. Get out. Next verse. Did we get all the pieces?
One more. It is distinct from all the 5 sheets.
Okay. We haven't gone into the Panchakosha, the 5 sheets yet. They're just another map. They're like the 3 bodies, the gross, subtle, and causal bodies. They're just another map, but what he's talking about, it is distinct from the equipment. Word for the equipment is upadis, the conditionings, the equipment. You are distinct from them. Right, next verse.
Yo vijanati sakalam jagrat swapna sushuptishu buddhita vritti sadbhavam bhavam ham mityayam. That which knows everything that happens in the waking, dream, and deep sleep states, that which is aware of the presence or absence of the mind and its functions, that which is the essence behind the ego, that is this.
So again, let's parse it. First idea,
That which knows everything that happens in the waking, dream, and deep sleep
and we
states.
talked about that briefly. If you're awake, who knows the conditions of the waking state? I do. You're having a dream, who knows the dream? I did. You had deep sleep, who knew it? I did. I know everything. And any altered mind state, oh, I astrally projected Jim. Who knew it? I did. My chakras were buzzing. I think I'm getting advanced. Who knows? I did. I think my kundalini is rising. I like kundalini with Alfredo sauce myself. I'm not saying that phenomena doesn't happen on the path. But we get all caught up in it. If it has a beginning and an end, if it occurs in one of the three states, if it has qualities and characteristics, and most importantly, if it is objectively known, mithya, illusory. What's real? The knower of all these. Next idea.
That which is aware of the presence or absence of the mind and its functions.
Oh, yes. So, in deep meditation, my mind can get very slow. I find space between thoughts. So, who is aware of the thoughts and the absence of thought? This can also be interpreted at night in deep sleep. I wake up in the morning and I must have slept soundly. I can't remember a thing. Aware of the absence. I like to use this example. Can you see that there's a phone in my hand? Can you see there's no phone in my hand?
Mhm.
So we can be aware of the presence of something and also be aware of the absence of something. And this is Vedanta's answer to the Shunyavadins, that school of Buddhism that says consciousness itself is impermanent. Okay, hypothetically, let's say it's so. Who here doesn't exist? I do not exist. So, have you experienced your non existence? Yes, I've experienced my non existence. And to whom or to what did this occur? There was a field of awareness. I do not doubt that something disappeared and something came back. Kriti, we would call. Next idea.
That which is the essence behind the ego.
And we talked about this. So, ego is a kind of thinking. I frankly prefer to use the word jiva bhavana. It's my preferred expression. I borrow that from the sage Gaudapada. Bhavana means a feeling or an attitude. The feeling or the attitude that I'm a person. It's not a thing. It's not an entity. You are an entity. You are the entity. Next idea.
That is this.
Yes. All right. I think we'll quit here. These are very, very. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari